let's unpack this one. Imagine 5 friends, right? All young men with mild intellectual disabilities living in this really close-knit community in California.
Yeah.
They're excited. They're heading off to a basketball game, just a totally regular night out for them.
Supposedly regular.
Exactly. But then they just vanish. And this isn't, just another missing persons case. It's deep, bewildering. It's puzzled investigators, armchair detectives, everyone for decades.
Mm-hmm.
So today we're doing a deep dive into this strange, really tragic case of the Yuba County Five.
And what's so captivating here, I think, is how it mixes these totally mundane, everyday life details with circumstances that just defy any logical explanation. We'll be looking at, police reports, witness statements.
Yeah, and all the sources.
And then the grim discoveries that honestly just raised even more questions. So our mission for you, the listener, is really to pull out the key nuggets from these sources, give you a shortcut to understanding this truly, truly bizarre event.
Okay, so for this deep dive, we're using excerpts from a pretty detailed Wikipedia entry on the Yuba County Five. We'll follow the timeline, when they disappeared.
Right.
The discovery of the car, which is baffling in itself.
Oh, completely.
These confusing witness accounts, and then, the shocking findings that came later. So, let's set the stage, and let's introduce the 5 young men. First, Gary Del Mathias, 25, assistant manager, diagnosed with schizophrenia, but he was treated as an outpatient. Doctors actually called him a sterling success case.
Which is an interesting detail later on.
It is. Then Jackie C. Hewitt Jr., Jack, 24, and Theodore Ted Earl Wire, 32. Both had intellectual disabilities. Then Jack Antone Madruga, 30. Army vet, described as a slow learner, but crucially, he and Mathias were the only ones with a driver's license.
That's key. Madruga's car.
Right. And finally, William Lee, Bill Sterling, 28, also a slow learner. They all lived at home with their parents in Yuba City or Marysville. Families called them the boys.
Just young guys.
Yeah. And they shared this passion for sports. Played basketball, the Gateway Gators. It was a team backed by a local program for people with disabilities.
And they were actually getting ready for a big tournament, right? A Special Olympics tournament.
They were. That's what makes the night even stranger.
Yeah, and if you connect that to the bigger picture, their routine, getting ready for that tournament, uniforms laid out, asking parents to wake them up.
Right, the normal stuff.
It just highlights how ordinary this night was supposed to be, makes the deviation, whatever happened, just so much more unsettling.
Totally. So the night itself, February 24th, 1978, they drive Madruga's car, this turquoise and white 69 Mercury Montego, about 50 miles north, to Chico State.
To watch a basketball game, UC Davis.
Yeah, just to cheer them on.
Yeah.
And they weren't dressed for, heavy weather, just light coats.
In February. In the mountains, potentially.
Yeah, their last definite sighting. Just before 10 p.m., Bears Market, downtown Chico, buying snacks, sodas, milk.
The clerk remembered them, right? Because it was a big group, arriving late. She wanted to close up.
Exactly. Delayed her closing.
But that sighting, it really does make you wonder, why go all the way to Chico just to watch a game? Why not rest up for their own tournament the next day?
That's a great point.
It seems small, maybe, but it's one of those little threads in this whole mystery.
It really is. Such an odd choice. Okay, they don't come home. The search starts pretty quickly. Then, days later, February 28th, a ranger finds the car.
And this is where it gets really weird.
Yeah. Madruga's Montego, abandoned. But where? Plumas National Forest, super remote area, 70 miles from Chico.
70 miles.
Miles off any direct route home. Up this high mountain dirt road.
And the car itself, it's just a huge source of confusion. It was working fine, had gas, like a quarter tank.
It'll be started easily.
Yeah, you could hotwire it, apparently. And it was stuck, but only in shallow snow. 5 healthy young guys.
Yeah.
They should have just pushed it out.
Easily. You'd think so.
So why didn't they? That's the first massive question mark.
And the weirdness just keeps piling up. The location itself. None of these guys were known to be outdoorsy types, especially not in the cold mountains. Madruga hated it.
Hated the cold, yeah. Sterling had been up there once, apparently, and hated it too.
Right. Inside the car, you find the empty snack wrappers from Chico, the basketball programs, confirms they were there. A California road map, neatly folded.
Okay, so they were definitely in the car.
But then look at the car's undercarriage. No dents, no scrapes, despite driving up this long, bumpy, difficult mountain road.
Which suggests what? Either an incredibly careful driver?
Or someone who knew that road really well.
And Madruga didn't. His family was adamant he wouldn't let anyone else drive his car.
Never. Plus the car's unlocked, window rolled down. Totally unlike Madruga's habits, he was meticulous about locking it.
Just adds another layer of strangeness.
And then, to top it all off, a huge snowstorm hits right after, hampering the initial search efforts.
So a crucial window of time was lost there.
Definitely. Now, as if an abandoned car in the middle of nowhere wasn't confusing enough, then come these witness accounts.
Ah, yes, the sightings, which really muddy the waters.
They really do.
Hmm.
They suggest maybe the men met someone else or took an even stranger turn.
Well, let's talk about Joseph Sean's. His account is just unsettling. He's having a mild heart attack. He's stranded in his own car, only about 150 feet away from the Montego.
Right near them.
He sees headlights, calls for help, sees a group of people, thinks one looks like a woman holding a baby.
A woman with a baby. Up there.
Exactly. He calls out and they just go silent. Turn off their lights. Later, he sees flashlights, calls out again. The flashlights go out too.
That is absolutely chilling. Why would they do that?
Who knows? Sean's initially thought he saw a pickup truck too, briefly, but he was in a lot of pain, wasn't sure later. His heart attack was confirmed, though. He eventually walked miles for help.
He passed the Montego on his way back after getting help at a lodge down the road.
And, Wira's mother later said, Ted wouldn't just ignore someone calling for help. It wasn't in his nature.
Has that human element, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Makes you think, who are those people Sean saw? Why react like that?
Exactly. Baffling.
Okay, then there's the other sighting. A week after they vanished, March 3rd, Brownsville store. Which is what, 30 miles from where the car was found?
Yeah, a significant distance away. A store worker and the owner report seeing 4 of the men.
4 of them, in a red pickup truck.
A red pickup, not the Montego.
The worker said their eyes looked big, their expression seemed odd, not like locals. She saw 2, identified later as Hewitt and Sterling, using a phone booth outside.
While 2 others, thought to be Weir and maybe Hewitt again, went inside. Bought burritos, chocolate milk, sodas.
So this sighting just throws everything into chaos, doesn't it?
Completely. Why a red pickup? Why so far from their own car? Why acting like nothing's wrong, seemingly unaware they missed their own basketball game?
And the details are weird, too. Hewitt's brother said Jack hated using phones.
But Weir's brother said the food choices. Ted getting burritos and chocolate milk and being with Hewitt. That sounded exactly like Ted.
So some details fit, others really don't.
Right. The discrepancy between these sightings and where the car was found, it's a major, major piece of this puzzle that just doesn't fit anywhere neatly.
It really doesn't. The pieces just refuse to connect properly. So months go by. The snow starts melting.
Yeah.
June 1978, 4 months after they disappear.
And then the discoveries begin. Grim ones.
Yeah. June 4th, some motorcyclists are out, and they find Ted Weir's body inside a U.S. Forest Service trailer.
How far from the car was that?
About 19-20 miles? 19.4 miles from the Montego. The trailer window was broken, like someone forced entry.
And Weir, how was he found?
Wrapped in 8 sheets. Not a bit.
8 sheets, okay. And the autopsy?
Showed he died from starvation and hypothermia. He'd lost almost half his weight, nearly 100 pounds.
Wow.
His beard growth suggested he'd been alive in there for a long time. Maybe 3 months, maybe more.
3 months. Surviving in that trailer.
Apparently. His feet were terribly frostbitten, almost gangrenous. But the tragedy here, it's not just his death. It's the inaction.
The resources, right? What was in the trailer?
Exactly. That's what makes the scene inside so deeply confusing. There were matches, paperback books to use as tinder, heavy forestry clothing, all untouched.
Untouched. In that cold.
Untouched. There was a locker filled with enough sea rations, dehydrated food, for 5 men for a whole year.
A year's worth of food.
Yes, unopened, except for about 12 cans of sea rations nearby that had been opened and eaten.
So they ate some food, but ignored the bulk of it.
Seems like it. And there was a butane tank nearby that could have fueled the heating system, also unused.
It makes no sense. Why not use the heat? Why not eat the food?
Well, Weir's family did say he had severe cognitive limitations, lacked common sense. They mentioned having to literally drag him out of a burning building once because he was afraid of being late for work.
Oh, wow. So maybe he just didn't understand how to use the resources. Or was too scared.
It's a possibility. But the evidence also strongly suggested he wasn't alone in there, at least for a while.
How so?
Gary Mathias's tennis sneakers were found in the trailer.
Mathias's shoes. Okay.
And those sea rations that were opened, they used a P-38 can opener, which is a military thing.
So either Mathias or Madruga, the army vets, would likely know how to use one, not necessarily the others.
Exactly. And the sheets wrapped around Weir. His feet were so bad, it's unlikely he could have done that himself. Someone else must have covered him.
Implying someone was with him, caring for him perhaps, near the end.
Seems that way. Also, Weir's own shoes were missing. Maybe Matthias took them when he left.
If he left, another mystery.
So the day after Weir is found, June 5th, they find more remains. Jack Madruga and Bill Sterling.
Where were they?
About 11 and a half miles from the car. So roughly halfway between the car and the trailer. Found on opposite sides of the road.
And the cause of death.
Hypothermia again.
Deputies thought maybe one just succumbed to the cold, fell asleep.
That lethal sleep hypothermia induces. Right. And the other stayed with him, loyal friend, until he succumbed too. Just tragic.
Horrible.
Then 2 days later, June 7th, Jack Hewitt's remains. Just a backbone found under a bush about 2 miles northeast of the trailer.
2 miles from the trailer, so he made it further or took a different path.
It seems like it. His shoes and jeans were nearby. Skull found about 300 feet away, likely animal activity. Cause of death, hypothermia again.
So 4 bodies found, all died of hypothermia and starvation, essentially.
Yes. And nearby, about a quarter mile from the trailer, they found 3 Forest Service blankets and a rusted flashlight. More resources seemingly unused or abandoned.
Which just loops back to that critical question.
Yeah.
Why walk all that way, 19 miles through deep snow, reach a trailer with shelter, food, heat,
Yeah.
only to barely use any of it and die of exposure? It defies logic. And of course, the huge lingering question.
What happened to Gary Matthias?
Exactly. His shoes are in the trailer, suggesting he was there, but he's never been found. Not a trace.
It's completely baffling, the sheer irrationality of it all, given what was available to them. It's hard to wrap your head around. So we've got all these pieces.
Yeah.
What do investigators think happened? What are the theories?
Well, the main police theory hinges on them taking a wrong turn. Maybe near Oroville? Perhaps Matthias wanted to visit friends he had in a small town called Forbestown, which was sort of up that way.
Okay, a wrong turn makes sense initially.
But instead of turning back when the road got tough, back towards the main road where that lodge was, remember, the lodge Schoens got help from.
Right, there was help available relatively nearby, back the way they came.
They kept going, up the mountain road. The leading idea is they eventually got the car stuck and then decided to follow the tracks of a Forest Service snowcat that had gone through earlier.
Thinking it would lead to shelter.
Presumably, even though it meant trekking through snowdrifts maybe 4, 5, 6 feet high, a desperate gamble.
And based on where Madruga and Sterling were found?
They likely died first, halfway between the car and the trailer. Maybe Hewitt shortly after, trying to push on.
Leaving Matthias and Weir to finally reach the trailer.
And when they got there, it was locked, so they likely broke the window to get in.
Right.
Which leads to this really sad hypothesis. Maybe they were scared. Scared of being arrested for breaking in, for burglary, maybe theft if they used the supplies.
Fear-trumping survival instincts.
Possibly. Especially compounded by Weir's known cognitive limitations. He might not have understood how to use the heating or been too afraid or just followed Matthias's lead. It's this tragic mix of fear and perhaps diminished capacity.
And then, Matthias, the ultimate loose end. What happened to him?
The assumption is after Weir died, or maybe Matthias thought he had died, he left the trailer, took Weir's shoes maybe, tried to walk out, find civilization over land.
But he had schizophrenia, right? Untreated by then.
Yes. His photo was sent out to mental institutions, thinking he might turn up confused or disoriented, but nothing. Never seen again. Vanished like the others, but without a final trace.
And that's why this case gets called the American Dyatlov Pass, isn't it?
It really is. That comparison comes up a lot. Not just because it's an unsolved mystery in a remote, snowy location.
But the weirdness of it all.
Yeah, the bizarre circumstances, the seemingly irrational choices made by people in extreme conditions. The environment itself almost feels like an antagonist. It just has that same haunting, inexplicable quality.
Wow. Okay. This deep dive, it's really taken us through a disturbing sequence of events. You start with a simple basketball game.
Completely normal.
And end up with an abandoned car miles from anywhere, conflicting sightings, 4 bodies found in these incredibly bizarre circumstances near a stock trailer.
Yeah.
The Yuba County Five case truly remains one of the most perplexing, unsettling mysteries out there.
Absolutely. The human element is so strong here, the vulnerability of these young men, the decisions that seem completely illogical from the outside, that untouched food and heating in the trailer. It all just screams, why? Decades have passed, and like you said, the questions still far outweigh the answers, especially about Gary Mathias. What was his fate? We just don't know.
So what does this all mean for us, thinking about it now? I mean, it's a stark reminder, isn't it, how fast a normal situation can just unravel into something completely inexplicable.
It really challenges your assumptions about logic, about how people behave under extreme stress, about survival itself.
Definitely.
And maybe that prompts a question for you, the listener. If you were faced with something truly extreme, how would you react? Especially if the obvious solutions seem blocked, or if fear, maybe irrational fear, starts to outweigh basic survival needs.
That's a heavy thought. It really is. Perhaps this deep dive just leaves everyone, us included, with more questions than answers, which happens sometimes with these cases.
Often does with the really deep mysteries.
Keep digging, keep exploring. You've been well informed.